What's up, you pencil neck geeks? Welcome to the world famous Comedy Store. This is the Store Horsemen podcast. This is your boy, the Darkitect, speaking. To my left, the Golden Pony, Tony Hinchcliffe. Welcome back, brother.
Hey, good to be here. Excited to talk wrestling in this modern age of warfare.
Yeah, indeedy, sir. To your left, not Matt, not Johnny, but the evil genius Eddie Firth. What's up, good?
I got to admit, I kind of missed you guys. It's been too long.
Yeah? I thought you were going to make it tonight.
What do you mean?
Oh, that was last week.
Last week I was reffing for Wow
right.
Women in Wrestling.
Totally. How'd that go?
Awesome. They great tapings. Above everything else, it reminds me how fucking great Tessa Blanchard is.
Yeah.
Working with her, getting to see her work in the ring, it's just insane.
It's pretty shocking that she's not in the WWE, but we could talk about that another time.
I was randomly watching WoW,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm surprised the amount of production that's in that show.
Yeah.
It looks fucking great.
Totally.
I mean, thank you, Jeannie Buss.
There you go. And you heard that voice. That is the jabroni Josh Martin checking in.
Hello.
What's up? What's up?
I was watching the Royal Rumble from '92,
Yes.
and I feel like I should no longer be called Jabroni
Why?
because you should call me Jamerson.
Jameson.
Yeah, he was the manager. He was with the Bushwhackers
Okay.
during that match.
Yeah.
The nerd with the glasses.
Sure.
I was like, I relate more to that guy
I could
than
see
to
that.
anything else.
Not a whole lot happened with Jameson in his wrestling career, unless he became someone else.
Wasn't that the guy that had his hair like plastered down?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like Revenge of the Nerds.
It's Harvey
basically.
Whippleman's son.
There you go. You guys watching wrestling this week?
Watched some, a little bit.
Yeah. I watched some, and I mean, it was interesting because it was like the go home shows of two non-pay-per-views coming up. You know, they're billing next week's Monday Night Raw as the season premiere of Raw.
Oh, because this was the season finale.
I guess so.
Yeah.
And then SmackDown. This was the goodbye episode of SmackDown Live. It's just going to It's going to Friday Night SmackDown the same way it's Monday Night Raw, and it'll be the first episode on the Fox Network next week.
Wow.
And I mean, they've announced some matches for next week.
It did kind of feel like they were setting up two different pay-per-views next week: Friday Night SmackDown and Hell in a Cell.
Yeah. Well,
For
Hell in a
better and for
Cell
worse.
is what, a week after next week?
No, it's that Sunday. It's the 6th, isn't it? October 6th.
Is it?
I
not
think
sure.
I
Lord have
think
mercy.
Friday Night SmackDown premiering on the 4th is 2 nights before Hell in a Cell, which is why it's that odd breakup of, you know, not to get too far ahead, but Kevin Owens and Shane McMahon happening on Friday night instead of on Sunday at Hell in a Cell.
You're right. October 6th.
It's right on
Hell in
top
a
of each
Cell.
other.
Right on top. I mean, they got a lot of shit going on that
Yeah.
week. But you know, some interesting things going on. I mean, you mentioned Hell in a Cell. There's 3 matches already announced for that. Seth Rollins defending his Universal title against Bray Wyatt. Becky Lynch defending her Raw Championship against Sasha Banks in the Hell in a Cell. Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns taking on the formerly Bludgeon Brothers, Luke Harper and Eric Rowan. And then we got a ladder match. Oh no, that's actually happening
That's
next week
Friday.
on SmackDown.
That's going to be on Friday.
So that's all we got as far as matches so far for Hell in a Cell.
Kofi hasn't been announced for anything because he's wrestling Brock on Friday night.
That's correct. So those matches have been announced for Friday Night SmackDown. The ladder match between Kevin Owens and Shane McMahon, with essentially their respective careers up in a briefcase hoisted above the ring. We're getting Sasha Banks and Bayley versus Charlotte and Becky Lynch.
Is that happening in a cell? Is that?
No. That's the tag match on SmackDown
Oh wow.
coming up, and the WWE title match: Kofi Kingston, Brock Lesnar.
And also next week for NXT,
yeah,
because they're competing with AEW. Pretty much all the titles are being defended on that show, on the 2-hour show.
Indeed, because it's going to be the first show that is 2 hours on USA instead of the first hour being USA, second hour being on the WWE Network.
Thank God, because it's very confusing having that hour
Yeah.
on two different sources to watch it.
And, you know, I'm overwhelmed just previewing that shit just right now. And that's all happening fucking next week.
UFC, you had to go to 3 sometimes.
Yeah?
Yeah, there was the prelims were on Fox 1,
Fox Sports 1.
and then the regular undercard was on Fox.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and and then you have to switch over to pay-per-view. And sometimes it's like that with ESPN still, is if it's a massive night, they'll make the main card a pay-per-view and have it roll on ESPN Plus and or ESPN. Like they stagger it. They want you to flip channels. And it's incredible what's going on right now.
It really is. But is it, I don't know, is the wrestling audience as big? Is it big enough to sustain success for all of this shit? Or do you think it's the same audience that's going to be watching all of this shit? Do you think it's the WWE people that are going to be watching just like channel surfing, or are they going to bring in a whole new sort of audience?
Yeah, it's going to be new. I can tell just from that commercial that I sent into the group text, the big first Fox WWE, you can feel it, man. It's so much more. They're going to get new people because their production value is going to increase. Just period. Because I can see what that commercial strategically does, right? It's got a lot of new people, but it starts with what? Stone Cold and The Rock.
Yep.
And the whole effect is if you're watching around and the family's watching football or something like that, and Uncle Bill's hanging out, and Uncle Bill goes, "Oh, shit, look at this."
Yep,
and the little nephew's like, "Wait, what is this?" And they don't know yet.
Totally.
It's like, "Oh, you don't know? Well, guess what?" And think of nowadays on his phone, how quickly you can get your little nephew hooked on pro wrestling, which we know is what happens when you're a kid and you see all this shit happen.
And also, it feels like Disney with ESPN's trying to get a push on pro wrestling because they just started airing a Becky Lynch commercial on ESPN for like this is Sports Center commercials. It's a great commercial, but it's like I could easily see them trying to.
Well, Disney's been.
I mean, don't forget this has been my big prediction all along. Is WWE will eventually be on ESPN. They're going to take the same path as UFC. They've found a way to legitimize sports, and the newer sports are always going to be fresher than. The concussions, it's so depressing watching football nowadays. I mean, these guys are fucking. When you see a head injury and you see them staggered, it's so sad. That's their brain.
Yeah.
You only get one of those in UFC. That's the win. That's a knockout. And then even then, it's one hit without your brain shaking from pads inside, which is the real trauma, is when your brain hits your skull, not when whatever hits your skull. So it's safer, and WWE the same thing. Like, football's sad, man. It used to be, oh my God, UFC, these people are crazy.
Yeah.
These people, someone's going to die in there, and, whatever. And WWE sort of the same thing. Back when people thought it was real, they're like, oh my God, someone's going to die. Now people don't want that anymore. Even NASCAR, it's like, where are they at? It seems like they're struggling.
Well, that's why
people did die, and it doesn't work for them. Dale Earnhardt hitting that wall fucked them.
Well, I worry about that with AEW because, their style is so fucking breakneck. And, I mean, I was thinking that with more shows, they'd probably try to tone it down. Then I saw a Canadian Destroyer through a table, you know what I mean, in their last show. And I'm just like, if this is just the speed they go, how do you learn? I mean, and maybe that's why they've got, like, Dean Malenko and, Arn Anderson, different people like that, joining the company to maybe teach them how to do a toned down television style as opposed to almost killing yourself.
And maybe
every
save
episode.
Those special ones for like the pay-per-views and stuff like that.
Because also, just even the safety factor out of the window, it's just a law of diminishing returns. How many fucking springboard 360 planches can you see before it's like, okay, great, I saw it. You know what I mean?
And ultimately, that's not. We would love to believe that that's the kind of stuff that draws people in, but if you look at, because I think I'm cutting out. I think we're on the precipice of that cycle coming back around.
Yeah.
Right? Like wrestling being cyclical, like most things, it comes and goes. But if you look at the biggest waves in pro wrestling when it was the most mainstream, the people at the forefront were not doing Canadian Destroyers off the top of ladders. They were not always the most technically sound. We're talking Hulk Hogan. We're talking Stone Cold Steve Austin. We're talking John Cena.
Yep.
And so whatever comes next is going to be this thing. It's going to be a character. It's going to be a person. It's going to be something that draws people in. And certainly on either side of the fence, whether it's from AEW or with WWE, somebody's going to step up. Yeah.
Like you see NXT, they have firmly positioned Velveteen Dream as the biggest star in the company.
And I will go down. I still think it's Charlotte Flair. I think she's going to be the person
and NXT.
to draw. Yeah.
Wait,
I think Charlotte Flair's going to be the one to draw people.
Oh, yeah. All the promos, all the video packages have Dream up front and center. He even has the best T-shirt on the fucking on the WWE Shop net right now.
Yeah.
And then you're right too, because even in AEW, with all the crazy shit that has happened in their shows, who seems to keep getting the best rated matches? It's Cody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and he's working a much like slower, methodical style than Omega or the Bucks or the Lucha Brothers or any guys like that.
Especially on this level, it's got to have that big fight feel, and the big fight feel has very little to do with anything else but feeling special, feeling important, having people who appear as the main event. And Cody certainly has. Yeah. All the tools to be that. He's positioned himself well in the last 2 years.
Totally. But, speaking of positioning, so, the whole deal with Fox on SmackDown, we've heard a few things. That most notably that they want to, like going to Tony's point, they want to make it look like actual sports. So they've set up this Kofi Kingston versus Brock Lesnar for the WWE title on the very first episode. Now, some of the other reports coming in is that Fox really wants a black champion for their brand at the moment. So it's kind of like, well, what decision do you make here in this main event next week? Do you have Brock beat him for the title and kind of go back to the status quo that we've seen over the last few months? I mean, granted, Brock's probably the biggest crossover star they have that isn't John Cena, and Cena's tied up in movies for the next few years. Or months, whatever. And but then again, Kofi Kingston does hit that diversity quota, which last time they were on network television with SmackDown, the whole thing was, building around Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio. You know what I mean? They pushed them way to the forefront because that diverse audience really connected with them. So if you're WWE, what move do you make next week? Do you have Brock kill him, or what do you do?
Well, you got to keep the belt on the black guy.
Is that right, Chairman?
Yeah. Brock wins by disqualification. Or Kofi, yeah.
Interesting.
Keeps the belt. Brock still looks dominant. Injures him. Kofi comes out in a cast on Monday. What do you want?
Yeah.
You agree with that, Josh?
Won't be on Monday anymore.
It'll be on Friday, whatever.
On Friday.
It all runs together.
You're lucky when those kinds even show up to work.
Those kinds? God damn it.
Those championship kinds.
Oh, okay, got it.
With the dark skin.
What do you think, Ed?
It certainly speaks to me like you have an 8-minute match that doesn't have a real finish to it.
8 minutes, really?
Why not? If you're on Fox and you want to keep people tuned in, you let Brock and Kofi go for a minute. You let Brock throw Kofi around the outside. You let Kofi hit one or two Trouble in Paradise. You make it competitive. You have it go a full segment because you'll get the introductions.
I'm saying I'd go longer.
Oh, gotcha.
I say go longer as well. Question: is SmackDown going to be 3 hours like Raw, or is it staying at 2 hours?
It's staying at 2 for now.
Okay,
but they've thought about adding 3, but I think
they won't do that.
That extra hour just went to NXT basically of programming.
Yeah. Okay. I think it'll be some sort of DQ or non-finish to set up more, especially if you want to go into Hell in a Cell on Sunday with a match between them. I don't know.
So
exactly
they're fighting on
go.
Friday and Sunday?
There's no match announced for Sunday between the two of them right now. Technically, right now, there is no WWE Championship match at Hell in a Cell scheduled for the 6th.
Totally.
Wow.
If they do, what they'll do is they'll announce. I mean, and everyone's talked about. I mean, I've heard rumors that The Fiend is going to come over and interrupt. Braun is going to come over. They have the draft coming up. There's so many different ways it could go. I think there is
the draft is the following week.
Yeah,
on Friday.
I think there's a lot of unpredictability right now. So.
Apparently, Fox really wants Bray Wyatt.
Yeah. I was going to segue into that.
They were fighting for Bray Wyatt, but it looks like he's probably staying in Raw, which I think is good for Raw because you can't lose too much talent from Raw to SmackDown. Then Raw just becomes what SmackDown was.
Well, the dynamic is going to be interesting. I mean, Paul Heyman is a super competitive guy, super creative guy. And with WWE putting all their attention into, I mean, it's really a 2003 situation where it's like Raw was the flagship. All their energy was on Monday nights. And they said, here, Paul, you do what you do on Thursday nights. And that motherfucker turned SmackDown into a show that was beating Raw in the ratings. So it's kind of like...
It's just the opposite
now. It's the exact opposite. Exactly right. And all the energy, Triple H, Vince, Steph, everybody's going to be thinking about Friday night on Fox Network. Paul is going to be kind of left to his own devices, you know what I mean, with whatever talent that he's left with after the draft. And it just like makes for a very intriguing situation.
I would love to see a scenario where we aren't treating the two shows as if they are separate brands. You're just writing a storyline that goes out over the two, and sometimes you're showing up on Monday, and sometimes you're showing up on Friday, and sometimes it bleeds over, and there's competitive matches, and the belts move. I don't think they have to be separate. I know that that's the way it's going to go for now, but to me there is a place for Kofi Kingston to show up on both Monday and Friday in the same week, or to take 2 weeks off. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what we've had for the last few months, and I think what the problem comes in. Their roster is massive. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so it's like, sorry, fucking Rusev, we can't have you on this week because we got to follow this, Shane McMahon storyline over both shows, or we got to follow what Roman Reigns is doing over both shows, or whatever the fuck it is.
I think that's what's good. If you keep them very separate, then you can have dedicated stage TV time for these guys like Rusev and really build up. Raw staying 3 hours. So you have another hour to really build up these guys that may come from NXT that don't really get enough shine.
Yeah.
You can really build them up, and Paul Heyman's a good guy to build them up.
Totally. Unless he's overruled by Vince McMahon.
In that vein, there's no reason that we wouldn't want to see The Fiend show up on Monday night and attack Rollins and Braun, and then on Friday night,
either one. He's not going to be in some legitimate draft.
Yeah, and so then all of a sudden the Firefly Funhouse.
If they draft him, just leave it alone.
It's just impossible.
And so he's the kind of guy who I could see showing up on both and not having an issue. Same with somebody like a Braun Strowman. The big guys can do it.
Right. The top 10 stars are going to be on both. Usually they're going to be on SmackDown.
And that's, to me, completely exciting, because you're going to see how it's going to play out over multiple evenings.
Well, it's interesting because the promo for Fox SmackDown has been a lot of Raw stars, especially the women like Becky Lynch and Bayley and Sasha, and the only one, Charlotte's the only one who's a SmackDown superstar in that mix. But they are heavily promoting this sort of feud between the four of them on SmackDown.
The SmackDown Women's Champion Bayley showing up on Monday Night Raw without any irony whatsoever.
Right,
totally. Just there.
And it kind of made me sad a little bit, because we've gotten to, in the women's division, where we are, what happens a lot in the men's division, where it's like, okay, the focus is squarely on these four people, and then literally everyone else doesn't matter. I almost shed a tear this week when I saw Kairi Sane and Asuka chasing Carmella for the 24/7 title. I'm just watching it what the fuck
Although
is this?
outside of that 24/7 title, Carmella's insertion into this storyline has also been really awesome, because that was, for a few weeks, that was the conceit. Becky Lynch isn't going to be showing up on SmackDown, so Carmella steps in to help Charlotte Flair. And, I mean, underrated, because if you think about her getting called up from NXT with Cass and Enzo, we've said it before, she's the one who's standing out. Her work is good, her character's good. Carmella's a breakout, I think, especially with SmackDown.
It was some awkwardness to that, because they invented this friendship between Bayley and Carmella. It's they were best friends before this whole thing started, and it's I don't remember that shit happening.
Question for you. There's only one women's tag team.
Correct.
So how is that going to work?
Those titles travel, which is what I've been arguing, that just about every belt should travel except for the U.S. and Intercontinental. Just combine the bigger belts, and then it does a few things. It makes those titles more mage. It creates the notion of real separate brands, like their territories. Now NXT is 2 hours on USA, so now it doesn't really feel like a developmental territory anymore. You know what I'm saying? It's its own thing. And then Raw can be its own thing, and SmackDown can be its own thing. So then if you're the world champion, you could defend the title on every fucking show. Why not? You know what I mean? That's what Flair did over how many territories for how many years. You know what I'm saying? Dusty Rhodes, whoever. You could do the same thing in WWE and make it look super mage. Yeah. And it's you're already doing it with the tag belt, and then it's a good way to promote both shows without making the networks blush. You know what I'm saying? Where it's you don't have to promote Raw on Fox, but your world champion is on SmackDown, and if you want to see him again, they're going to be on Monday too. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's I think it would really be smart for WWE to pull that trigger right now. And if they had some unification matches on the draft episode, as a surprise, I'd be way into that.
There would be
great balls of unification.
since there's only a women's tag team title, I think it would be very good for Monday Night Raw to be the place to really develop women's tag team, like focus more on the tag team of women's and men.
Yeah.
And then SmackDown has like the individual stars.
Yeah.
And not a lot of tag teams really.
You know
but you focus mostly on Raw because you have that extra hour that you can dedicate towards an hour of just tag team wrestling.
You know what?
Throughout the entire 3 hours.
I want to interrupt you guys for a second.
Yes,
here.
Chairman.
Yes, Vincent K. McMahon listening in.
Hello.
And I just want to say, Josh, that is an unbelievably great idea. Developing women's tag teams on Monday Night Raw would be perfect. You want to know why? Because I don't get enough sleep. And if I do that on Monday Night Raw, I could finally take a little 15-minute snoozer like my doctor's been telling me to do for 40 years. Yeah, develop women's tag teams.
Oh.
So then,
Just kidding, Josh.
Sleep in a chair, man.
do we think we're going to see in the next year an hour show dedicated just to women's wrestling?
Oh God!
Because last week I sat down and I thought about, wow,
This is the one you guys call a genius?
WOW is the only all women's wrestling show on television right now, and that could be something that stands out as a product that is being. I mean, you talk about it. I would watch that show over 205 Live, which nobody else is watching.
Yeah. You know what WOW stands for, Eddie?
What does it stand for?
Wonder who's watching.
By the way, so we have a comment on Facebook by a guy named Andrew, and he actually commented right before we brought this up. Just go out and at this point and make everything. NXT, Raw, SmackDown, 205, an all ladies show, a tag team show, a death match show.
Jesus Christ.
Golden Girls of Fire.
Fucking midgets versus donkey show.
Jesus.
Wow. But with what we were talking
Very
about
specific.
before, while I'm not in love with the tag team of Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross, the real life heat between Alexa and Sasha
is fantastic.
Oh my God, so intriguing to me, and that's something that I think is going to get paid off on TV as well. Something else brewing, and I think Alexa Bliss is insanely underutilized and undervalued as a performer. She's
Do
one
you
of the
see
absolute
that
best.
tweet from Sasha Banks?
Which one?
She tweeted at Vince McMahon, "Thank you for booking this match against Alexa Bliss for me."
Yeah.
She said.
Well, because what's funny about their relationship is like it's been reported forever that they don't like each other backstage, but they have amazing chemistry every time they're in the ring together. Probably because they get hella stiff with one another every time they get in the ring with each other, and so I like that they've been sort of. Yeah, the main feud is Sasha and Bayley versus Charlotte and Becky, but they keep having this back and forth between Sasha and Alexa, which I'm sure is going to lead to them losing the tag belts to Bayley and Sasha at some point, thus putting that up as stakes for Charlotte and Becky. So I mean, it'll be interesting. An all women show at this point. I mean, Evolution was one of their most watched, most lauded pay-per-views. They canceled it. You know what I mean? There's no Evolution 2019 plan, or going forward. So, I mean, I don't know, man. It's
great holes of fire.
I don't necessarily think they will or they should. I think it's just something to keep an eye on, because if they continue to develop these, I mean, giving NXT a second hour, wondering what they're going to do with 205 Live, wondering what to do with the women's tag belts and all of these different things. Are you going to ever get a secondary belt in the women's division? It's certainly something that could pop up in the next year.
You know what, Eddie? I agree. You know what I thought about this? All jokes aside, I thought about this since you guys brought it up, and there will be an all-women's show.
Really?
Yes.
Exclusive.
It's going to be the first ever WWE cooking show.
Oh, my God.
Raw will be cooked.
They tried that once with Earthquake, bringing out Quake burgers to Vince and company.
They did announce what they're doing with 205, though.
Yeah.
So 205 will air right after SmackDown on the network, but NXT Creative will be in charge of 205.
Yeah.
So
Because
hopefully there's something there.
Because already, there's a didn't Leo Rush earn a cruiserweight title match on NXT?
I believe that might be on NXT next week as well. That title match. So, but NXT creative being in charge of 205, it's good for that.
Yeah, I feel like they should just merge that into NXT proper. At this point, it's just like you get another belt on NXT. Nobody's watching 205 Live anyway.
I mean, you have to understand that's the lower weight classes aren't even that watched in UFC. Like it's like they can't. Every time they've tried to make a main event UFC match a lower weight class, a very low weight class, it just doesn't work. It doesn't draw a lot of numbers. Even their biggest little guys are always going to either be co-headlining
UFC traded the biggest little guy.
Yeah. Well, not really. He took a huge loss to their new champion, and then
it's just a different thing. I mean, it is different perception wise. You know, Vince McMahon is right in that. I mean, larger than life characters, generally resonate more, and that generally comes with larger sized individuals. Like, Floyd Mayweather, maybe the greatest boxer of all time, his numbers are nothing compared to like Mike Tyson at his height, you know what I mean? Or when heavyweights were the shit in professional boxing. So it's kind of a tough scenario there, and
I agree. You combine the two and you don't even think twice about it.
It would make
not
so
a loss.
much sense.
It doesn't make 205 Live a disaster. It doesn't make it a failure.
You just bring the cruiserweight division right into it. You have the extra belt. You get it's almost like the TV title. You can defend it as often as you want.
And their style of working, the NXT audience is going to take to that.
If there's already that second hour of NXT that everyone's like, oh, now we're going to have an extra hour of programming. There's some talent. There's a belt. There's a storyline.
Exactly.
I mean, you just have to understand still that the second hour of NXT is only 20 more minutes of content.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a full another hour of content.
Sure.
Because they were already doing an hour of content. Yeah. And with commercials on USA Network, it's only 20 minutes.
Yeah, but I mean, there's... I watched some of NXT on the network today, and it was just like, Cameron Grimes versus some dude I had never heard of, Paul Mendoza or something like that.
Yeah, like the USA Network was Dakota Kai, is her name?
Oh, yeah.
She finally came back. They had an amazing Matt Riddle match.
Totally. So it's like, if you could throw guys like Drew Gulak in there, Jack Gallagher, fucking, you know what I mean? Like, that I think that ups NXT's game quite a bit.
NXT's already 205.
Yeah, right.
They need to stop pretending. And let me just say that the creative from NXT going to 205 Live might not be as good of news as you think it is. Like, it might not only might not help 205 Live, but it might be they send the wrong 2, 3, 4 real risk-taking creative people from NXT, and then you don't have your evolved writers on NXT. They're like, oh, send them to 205. They'll make that big too. Because it's not, we like to think that it's Triple H at NXT and Paul Heyman on Raw, but it's not. It's massive, busy work, and it comes down to 4 people on each show really making the final decisions and saying that's good enough, and that's good enough, and that's good enough. Good idea, Tyler. Good job, Cindy. And it's like,
they're
if you send the wrong person, like even writing on shows and whatnot, especially the Comedy Central roast, oftentimes they'll go with the best available head writer, and that's a really important role because some people won't even work for certain guys if they're too much of a corporate stooge. Even this most recent one, it was one of the last things that I checked on before I took a deal with them to do it again. It's like, who's the head writer? Because sometimes you get to a point where you're not desperate for a job.
Well,
at all.
Well,
so
dude,
these guys are doing pretty good, and who knows what else they're working on.
Yeah, I mean, these creative teams are absolutely massive. It's hard to say who's doing what. Like the internet all rejoiced when Bruce Pritchard was rehired by the WWE, and no one's heard hide nor hair of him since then.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And that's another big thing, is they could just say that they're hiring somebody for something, and you don't know.
Completely.
They might be not even in the same state as them.
Totally. Ryan Ward, who was the head creative for NXT when NXT made its rise and everyone was saying how great it was, they moved him to head writer of SmackDown. He was just recently ousted, basically, from the creative team. So it's like, I mean, not everybody's right for every situation. And it just makes more sense, I think, to lessen their workload and just like move that talent over. You need more time to fill anyway. You need more marquee talent on your live business for NXT when they travel around, and you don't want to do a whole lot of developmental guys in that situation. Probably not, as they're learning. So it just seems like the right move. But we'll see what happens.
With NXT, you have competition with NXT.
Yep.
You have direct competition coming up, so you need to get that shit together, you know?
Yeah.
Something we didn't talk about, SmackDown is getting pyro again.
Yeah, supposedly.
Who
Pyro.
predicted that? Who? I mean, this is just... I should be wearing a fucking fortune teller hat and have a crystal goddamn ball in front of me.
Is that going to be your Karnak impression next?
Yeah.
No, you got to. I mean, their whole strategy is like, we're going to make AEW look like the minor leagues. So they got to make their shit look so fucking polished and big and just all the stuff you remember from, the glory days of wrestling. They got to put that out there. None of this cutting corners and cost-saving measures and yada, 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 yada. Do the whole fucking thing. From what I understand, Brock Lesnar is going to be working way more of a full-time schedule now. Like they're going to pack SmackDown with basically their bigger stars. So, I mean, I'm excited to see what happens. I don't know if the show this week was the best way to go home for that. I mean... The show ended literally with a fight between Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch, 2 Raw superstars. And then before that, a Kofi Kingston promo about how he was going to beat Brock. That was that. Mm-hmm. And then a super rushed segment between Kevin Owens and Shane McMahon.
What a rush!
Like that segment. I mean, the Kevin Owens Shane stuff has been so odd the whole way through.
It's just terrible.
And look, this is completely.
This has been like 3 years.
Yeah, it won't end, and it's so bad.
And this is absolutely the Jew in me that's about to come out.
Okay. Oh.
But it was the moment where Shane said, "Look, if you drop the lawsuit, we'll give you the fine back. You'll be rehired. It'll be no problem." I was like, well, look, the lawsuit worked. You should just do it. That's the reason you were going to sue. That's the deal you were looking for. He's like, no. And I was like, what do you mean, no? That's the deal. That's why you did this, right?
That's what I mean. None of it makes any sense. The whole thing was Owens started out as this rebel. He's going to tell the truth. Then when he's reprimanded by Shane, he sort of kowtows and does what Shane wants him to do. Doesn't work out. He gets punked. He gets fired. Now all of a sudden he's a rebel again and he wants to sue him. And now that
what a rebellious move!
I know,
litigation
just totally killed the heat that Owens had from the crowd. Like his pop this week was just kind of like, great.
Imagine if he came out with a T-shirt that said "Sue Owens, sue."
Yeah, nice. At least that's something creative and clever, But like WWE didn't even give a fuck about this segment. They hit Owens' music before Shane could accept the challenge. Like it just started playing, and Shane's like, "You're on," and then they immediately cut to Kofi Kingston. I was just like, "Wow, what the hell happened?"
Favorite part
there?
is when Owens lays out the ladder match, and Shane goes, "What's the catch?" And I was like, "Nothing. There's no. What do you mean? What's the catch?"
Told you
he just said it. What are you talking? Are you paying attention to the segment, Shane?
The whole thing was ill, but
it's also exit.
SmackDown was kind of sad just because knowing that it's changing. Like the SmackDown we saw won't be the same SmackDown we'll see from this day forward.
Well, I'm okay with it. I mean, apparently, like you said, Pyro's coming back. Apparently, they're going to go back to unique sets between the two shows.
That's what I'm looking for. Oh, I'm so looking forward to that.
That I really can't wait
to see
for.
what they look like.
Yeah.
That one, oddly, is the one I'm most excited about.
The action this week was just so weird. I mean, you open with Daniel Bryan taking a loss to Eric Rowan. You know what I'm saying? Like,
a pinfall
granted
loss,
that he was distracted by Luke Harper, but I mean, literally just finisher pinned 1, 2, 3. Daniel fucking Bryan, and it was like, wait, what? You know what I mean? Then, like I said, the awkward Kevin Owens segment, the fight at the end to end the show. No Brock Lesnar live and in living color. Like, what are you doing to get me excited for next week? Just announcing matches isn't enough. But that number that they hit next week is going to be the biggest teller, for what's going to happen in the next year of programming there that we could hope for. But you are right. One thing that they did want for SmackDown was the Fiend. Apparently, Fox tried to make that part of their demands. But with Lesnar being there and Roman being there and Becky being there probably and all this stuff, it's kind of like, well, what do you leave fucking Monday Night Raw?
Nothing.
You know what I mean?
You leave them with nothing. They are. There's a flip happening here. I mean, Raw's still Raw, sure, but it's on a cable ding dong network. I mean, the only thing USA really has ever had is Raw. Like that's its
right. And Law and Order marathons.
Yeah, silk stockings.
Pacific Blue,
like Fam Nikita.
This
Monk
all night.
You're banking on Fox to get new people to sort of send to Raw, but you also want to send them. You really want to send them to the network. It's just it's almost like Raw will be sort of more NXT. What you always loved about NXT, you're gonna get on Raw, and sort of what's going on with I think with AEW. It'll be a little bit more, just a touch like that on Raw. But it's not going to be the Raw of old, because the new Raw is SmackDown.
Right, but the Fiend character, I don't think that works best for network TV necessarily. It's like you kind of want him to be on the show where they don't have to pull as many punches and they don't have to worry about, so many kids are watching this and so much sponsorship dollars and blah, blah, blah. Let him get fucking weird and, frightening to kids and all that stuff.
He'll be on Raw,
yeah.
But he'll also be on SmackDown. And yes, you're right. He's going to scare kids. And who else did that? The fucking Undertaker, the goddamn all the great bad guys.
So what do you go ahead?
I just think the other thing that we're going to learn from this is we're clearly in a new age of how everybody's taking in entertainment, whether it's on demand or you're DVRing it and seeing it later. I think this is going to be a real tell as to whether people are going to tune in live to see wrestling, whether it's still going to matter, if somehow this model is going to transition to these on-demand and streaming services that are necessary. Because we're looking at trying to develop this old model at a time when it's very clear that model's going away anyway. And here we are discussing live on Wednesday night, we have head-to-head, and live on Friday, there's this. And we're going through the transition where everybody's coming out with a streaming service and everything is on demand. So that's another factor that we're really going to have to see play out.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. You can't really compare it to other sports because UFC fans will set their week around that. Mm-hmm. It's not an every week thing. They'll set it around, this Saturday's the pay-per-view. So
it's not like the NBA or the NFL or the MLB.
And it's it's on a late time slot on an important night. Fridays are not as easy as Saturdays, and they're certainly not as easy as Sundays. Everybody still works that day. Everybody's tired from the rest of their week. Mm-hmm. Saturday, Sunday, I don't know, Monday's sort of a rough day too. But Friday's a hard day. So the numbers, I don't think, are going to be very important. The question is, with their production and with Fox's overall reach and power and money and advertising, getting new eyes on it and spreading it around afterwards, getting behind some of those clips, making the production higher and pushing them.
So, I disagree because I think the basis of the deal was what kind of numbers they're going to bring to the network.
It's about the numbers for sure.
You know what I mean? Like the whole idea is that they have to pull over a 3 million viewership in order to justify. Like that's why they were able to sign what they signed. Because, it is a dying medium, but WWE historically has been consistent. So it's like, okay, we need something that can fill that void of UFC and draw an audience to the fucking network. So if they're pulling in the numbers that they've been doing for the last 2 years, that's problematic to their bottom line. So, I hear what you're saying, but it's like they got to get people to watch on that Friday night, and that's fucking tough when,
I was
like
comparing it more to normal sports, but
yeah.
as far as the comparison of better than the last 2 years, yes, it's going to be extremely, massively better.
There is a real potential for the whole thing to implode just because of the time at which it's coming across.
Well,
I don't watch
changing.
live.
Yeah,
I don't have any of the networks that you would see any of these things on. I don't have cable. I don't have TV. Like I watch either on Hulu when it comes out in a format. I watch a lot of the YouTube clips. I watch anything else. Like, I don't. So that's what I mean. It's just this very interesting. Like this is going to be very telltale if this thing that is episodic, so it doesn't have a shelf life. It's not like Family Guy where they can sell the DVDs later and you could still see them fresh.
Yeah.
It's live, but it's not as prescient as seeing an NBA game.
Sure.
And yet they are relying on this idea that somehow if you get The Rock to show up on a Thursday night or on a Friday night, if you either advertise him or surprise me, somehow I'm going to then tune into Fox. I don't even get Fox.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
The landscape is literally more different than it has ever been in the history of pro wrestling. You know what I'm saying? We've all been conditioned since 1993 to watch Monday Night Wrestling. You know what I'm saying? Now it's like Monday, now Wednesday, there's like a head-to-head thing happening. Friday night is the big show.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
The main shows on Friday is a huge transition for all of us.
Totally. So, and then it's like, wait, and there's just so much going on. And then in most recent years, like I said, like New Japan has gotten more popular. You know, now Impact is moving to a better fucking.
Let me just
station.
interrupt you real quick to say this because it's so important. Now every Friday is a pay-per-view. It's all going to be so much more exciting. I've been saying it since the deal was announced. I went on long rants about it. I'm obsessed with this type of stuff.
They got to.
I'm obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with the Shane Gillis SNL thing because I know that he's going to be bigger than they are.
Yeah.
Maybe not bigger than they were in the early 90s, but he's going to be bigger than they are. I'm obsessed with the fact that the Emmy ratings were down 33%. People will rationalize, it's because of the liberal, it's because of the boo, 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 boo. It's because you can't joke anymore. It's because they don't have a comedian. Wrong. It's all about media and absorption and how are we getting this and who's doing what and how are they getting the information, and it has to be so fucking entertaining now. Things have to be so fucking entertaining. We talked about this a lot when we were talking about in-house numbers with the WWE, and I was trying to rationalize it, right? And it's true. There's so much fucking shit now. It's unbelievable what we can do on an iPad, on a smart TV, on Alexa, on our phone, on in your car, in your Tesla, everything.
No.
It's just, it has to be so entertaining. And this is the ultimate dream that we really could have asked for as modern day pro wrestling fans is Fox. Friday nights. You're going to watch it live? Absolutely not. There's zero chance. I'm on stage every single time that show's happening. I'm on stage. Yeah. Same as Raw. Doing a show every Monday at 8. And that's, that's a little bit obviously like, oh, well, that's you, Tony, but everybody's got something.
I think we're most likely going to watch it maybe a little bit hungover Saturday morning while laying
Oh,
in
it's going to be my WWE Superstars,
Yeah,
where I used to watch it Saturday mornings. That's going to be my SmackDown
we'll be
time.
Watching it Saturday morning, waking up early, just chilling in bed, watching it Saturday morning.
Friday night historically in TV is where shows go to die right before they get canceled. You know what I mean? Like, just move it to Friday because it ain't gonna last that long.
Hard for sports.
Yeah.
Think. What's Friday night?
And look,
fucking nothing.
Mostly just baseball and basketball games, but like
unwatchable
there's
sports.
Never football.
People
or
leave.
if it's a college game, it's like a bullshit. College.
People
game.
always leave their house on Friday night.
I go deeper. There's a big movie opening that's going to
Friday
kill that
night,
Friday night. It's going to kill. Luckily, there's no Avengers movies left because that would have killed anything they had coming in the summer. It's a very interesting. Even what executive at Fox thought to themselves?
And by the way,
this is perfect.
And by the way, it's going to be better than pay-per-views because pay-per-views don't even have to be good. We know this. And there's also going to be twists. You're going to think you're going to tune in to watch this and that, but Fox is going to establish right away, like, say no. I've been listening again to the Bischoff. What is it? 83 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh my God, is he good? And he's talking about these test groups that they went to and about how they would turn a meter when they saw all these different things. And the one thing that he really learned from doing all these test groups in different cities on the other side of fake glass was that they wanted to be surprised, shocked, and sometimes whether that was disappointment. And I'm listening to this thinking about us, about how easily we get played. Like, why would they do that? But it's exactly, now we have something to talk about and be passionate about. I'm never watching again. This is exactly the feeling that is being a pro wrestling fan. That is the thing. And like, they're going to give you a lot of what you want on Fox, and they're also going to fucking pull the carpet right out from under us sometimes.
And what we haven't talked about is that now with SmackDown being on Fridays, it's only 2 days until the pay-per-view. Yeah. So they can do something on the end of Friday, end of SmackDown. And it's more believable that those emotions have carried on.
Yeah.
To
the go-home
2 days
shows
later,
are going to be much
compared
better.
to 5 or 6 days later. It's like, you can't be that intense still.
And it's also, if they're smart, they could use this new, pop-up type of thing. That's why I was really intrigued when you said that they don't have a thing on Hell in the Cell, but they have it on Friday, is because it's like, how cool would that be to announce it 2 days out or at the end of an episode? You know what? Fuck it. Let's settle it at Hell in the Cell. Then you have 1.5 days of promotion. Sounds horrible until you realize this age we live in is literally like, oh, you didn't know if you didn't get the tickets between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. in person, then you're not in.
As the finish for
the sense of
Kofi and Lesnar, where it's a no finish, and it's like, oh, we got to deal with it at Hell in a Cell for sure.
Instagram that night or in the morning, it's announced with a graphic. The sense of urgency.
I don't know where I mentioned this at, or if it was 2 weeks ago when I was on here, but I saw a commercial the first week of college football a couple weeks ago, and it was showing all these long lines, these people waiting in lines. And it's like, what is all the buzz about? Blah, 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 right? And then it goes, Taco Bell's new so-and-so. And it's showing lines out the door, lines around the block. They're advertising lines at Taco Bell. This is the world we live in. This is think about that.
The Popeyes chicken sandwich.
Fast food. No, exactly. No, I know. That's exactly what they're doing. But think about what that is. They're trying to advertise long lines, a fast food place. Literally, if you wouldn't go there if it was like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just everything's backwards.
The opposite of fast food.
No, that's exactly it. I mean, I sat there, things like that. This is what I'm talking about. Like the things I get obsessed with are why does that affect people like that? And that's why, just like that, exactly. And FOMO, what's more FOMO than having something happen at the end of a Friday night that is on pay-per-view on Sunday?
That was our life during the Attitude Era. Like, who debuted on Nitro? What? Yeah. Like, you couldn't miss an episode.
Right.
One of the ways to create demand, I worked a lot of retail, especially like food retail. I worked at this one place where they talked a lot about how if the case was full of food, people were more likely to buy more. Like if you had 3 or 4 items left, they wouldn't buy all 4 and leave. Like, oh, I got the last one. You needed to have 40 things stocked and ready to go, and creating that demand is very intriguing. In some ways, the content almost works against it. We're less likely to consume it all if there's 9 hours of TV every week, but there is a way, like you said, to create this demand and this idea behind the demand if everybody wants it, and the sense of urgency to go get it.
It's like, I'll put it to you this way. There's one podcast that I know of that for a while was making T-shirts, and they would say, we've only made 500 of these T-shirts. Get them now. Go to the website. A new T-shirt design will be released in 2 weeks or something like that.
Yeah.
And they were really only selling, I think, 50 or 100 T-shirts. But then they would say, oh, we sold out. Next week is, the next week reveals in 5 days. Mm-hmm. But they were only really selling 100, we'll say, saying that there was only 500 or 1,000 available, and then saying that they sold out, and then they just kept doing it.
It's what AEW's been doing with their venues. It's like, oh, we're sold out. It's like, no, you only put a handful up for sale, and the rest you dumped on the secondary market. You know what I mean? Like it's games, but like you said, it led to a string of sold out shows for the first few weeks of their television taping. So it's like, it works. So next fucking week, and we're gonna be there. I mean, I can't wait to see what the fuck they're gonna do. No. I just really can't. And I can't wait to see what they're gonna do with this Fiend Seth Rollins situation. We talked weeks ago about how we thought it was too early for him to be in the title picture. I still very much feel that way, but it is what it is. We are here now. He has taken down. He took down Braun Strowman this week with the mandible claw. I love the way that they're actually letting Seth be afraid of him. Like, they usually don't do that with their champions.
He's screaming like a little kid in a horror movie.
Yeah. But it's like, like what you don't know which way is up when this fucker's around. So it's kind of like, how else are you gonna play it? But do you put the title on Bray Wyatt right now?
I feel like you have asked this question every week for the last.
Which is good. I love the question.
But it's just like I don't know what to do.
There is no wrong answer.
Yeah.
Here. There's definitely not a wrong answer. But the one thing that's important, no matter what happens, whether they put it on him or don't put it on him or this or that, is you cannot have him lose. You almost can't let him show any weakness. Yeah. If they were smart, he goes 712-0. I'm not kidding.
And here's
absolutely make him unstoppable. I mean, let me put it to you this way. What'd you say? That Asuka and so were chasing Carmella, right? Well, let me tell you something, all right? We were at events live a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and in the top 5 of energies and excitements upon their entrance was Asuka every fucking time. Asuka's gonna kill you and all this, her first pop and her coming out and her dominating and her this and her that. It was unbelievable. I can say, as a diehard Charlotte Flair fan, Asuka had the real dominant buzz, and it was because she wasn't getting beat. Now, again, we always go over this about the Charlotte thing and this and that. I loved that match. I don't mind that Charlotte was the one to beat her, but somehow she's just not completely still dominant after that. Like, I think sure, Charlotte broke the record, but she should still be a completely dominant force and absolutely on her own. Mm-hmm. She should have one loss.
Yeah.
And it should be that. And it should sting her, and it should be a long-running thing.
I think I would rather say it was too soon for the Fiend to win the title than us later talk about how they didn't do it. Do you know, like, how many times have we been like, they haven't capitalized? They never pulled the trigger on Braun Strowman, and we all kind of feel like we might have missed the boat on this potential superstar. Yeah. I'd rather us go, well, it was a bit too early, but just capitalize on what is hot right now. It feels so much to me like NWO or Crow Sting or, DX when it just feels like these unpredictable, almost Austin-like moments where this thing is just hot right now. Just ride it, do it, instead of us 6 months from now being like, man, they really missed the boat on pulling the trigger on the Fiend.
It is, but it's still.
But that's only if he loses. You're saying, right? Because I mean, he's still in the picture if he.
Look, I think
destroying people.
I think if there's I think you also. I would rather on Sunday have him win the title clean in, like, I want to see the match go almost like the Finn Balor match and just have it happen and do it, because if you do a screw finish, if you do anything, you're taking away from the luster of this one thing that we can all agree on is actually working really well, and I'd rather just do it and then later us be like, we could have waited another 3 months for it, then somehow fuck with this thing and not have it feel as fun and interesting. That's what I'd love.
I'd
love
agree
to
with
just
that, of
beat
course. And WWE notorious for not paying off stuff properly in recent years. But what you don't want either is the Goldberg. It was super exciting when he beat Hogan on Nitro, one of the biggest pops in wrestling history. Mm-hmm. But then what? You know what I mean, with Goldberg.
That being
said, kind of it.
The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, Wyndham Rotunda.
Yeah.
Way different than Goldberg. So the idea that long-term Bray Wyatt, Wyndham Rotunda, this guy who has put so much into this and the creative team that's behind him, he can back it up in a way different way than Goldberg can.
I don't disagree with you, but if they're going to do it, they got to know where they're going after that is the whole thing. Like, Bray has literally had to reinvent himself 3 times now. You know what I mean? Like, he is unbelievably talented.
That's his choice too.
But
you know what I mean? A lot of these guys wait around waiting for the writers to come up with something. He's not doing that. I even get offended when you say the creative team behind Bray Wyatt. Guys, it's him.
No, it's totally him. Guy. It's totally him. But
I read an article about his song.
No,
because I love the
that's
I
all
love
the same
theme
person.
Song.
Wyndham Rotunda is.
No, I know.
Yeah, okay.
No, you said in the creative team behind him at one point.
Oh.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm so obsessed with everything about this guy that I went back and I read an article because I've been listening. It's on my playlist now, the theme song.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go back and I read this article about Code Orange, right?
Yeah.
And they talk about how it's Bray sending them the notes, the vision, the everything, and thank you, good night. I promise you we'll use it. It was really like the way that they said it went down, Twitter DM, all this stuff. It reminds me of how I like to take care of things. You know what I mean? You fucking reach out, tell them you're a fan, fucking, just be honest and direct. And if you have a creative vision for something, you can share it. The most important thing about Bray is that there's a chance that he can inspire some of these fucking guys. I mean, like, how about all of them?
Mm-hmm.
We see it so often. It's on them. If they're letting Bray do this, it's not just because his dad's Erwin R. Shyster and his uncle's Barry Windham or whatever and all these things. It's because a lot of the things he does get traction and he rolls with it and he believes in himself. It's the most important thing. He's the most important wrestler that there is right now because he is the one to inspire.
Yeah.
There's nobody else.
Well, it's like Shawn Michaels back in the day. Like a lot of people say that whole the term attitude when they started doing the WWF attitude like pop on each commercial. Apparently that literally came from when Shawn Michaels went out when was it when Vince wasn't around?
There. JR interviewed him.
And Shawn came in with the biker shorts with a sock in the front. In that famous, clip where he's jumping up and down trying to get JR to look at his dick, and then he's gyrating on the ground with no shirt on and all this. Vince apparently furious when it happened. Furious.
And then a
curses
week later,
Shawn out. A week later, calls together the whole creative team. What Shawn did last week, God damn it, that's what we need. Attitude. You know what I mean? Like, and that was like the dawn of the changing of the product. So it's like totally could be that. You know what I mean? I totally feel it. Bray is, fucking Enzo sat here and did nothing but talk about how creative Bray was for 15 minutes. Like,
from some accounts, this is the character he wanted from the beginning as well. I've heard that this is something
there's
that
video of him doing it in FCW.
And what's great is that everything that happened made it even that much better that it's happened. Now it even makes more sense.
Because now he has referential stuff to use in this character.
Yeah.
Which is why I say put the title on him now. Let him, first off, can we talk about how Seth Rollins' promo the other night made Bret Hart look like a great talker on the mic? Like,
Seth,
just take the title off. Let Seth turn heel. Get him. But whatever, just let Bray do it. Like, push the Fiend. Let it go. Like, let's just go. Let's just let it loose. Because
I don't see a scenario. I mean, I brought up the scenario last week with what if, like, this is the start of the Undertaker shit because he attacked Kane last week and that Undertaker, you weren't here last week, but that was my notion. Like, because he did the 11/19 thing on the Firefly Funhouse, which is the Undertaker's debut date, and then he attacks his brother the very next week. You know what I mean? It's like that's an easy like provocation of the Undertaker. But also on Twitter, Braun Strowman tweeted, "Old friend, you have no idea what you just started after having been attacked by the Fiend." And Bray responded from his account. What was it?
So great.
It was like don't. It was like stay away, please.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He's like really. He's on his side.
Yeah.
Like don't please
don't
do
this.
Fiend
Don't do this.
And so I think the Undertaker feud matters more if the Fiend wins the Universal title next weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I think whenever they get to the Undertaker, I think if you have the Undertaker interrupt and prevent him from winning and then go into this, who's going to be the real Fiend, I think it takes away. I think you need to make this the central focus of the entire company of what you're doing. I think this has to be it. I think the idea of the Fiend and Brock being the champions going into Survivor Series, and that's the match we get, and that's where we're all like, oh my God, what is going to happen here?
Right.
Strike now. God, where was it? Where it was? I just heard this recently. Oh, it It was Kevin Feige talking about those Marvel movies. And he would tell his writers, if you have something good now, don't save it. Do it now. Because we want to plan long term, but who knows where we're going to get with these things. Don't save the thing, use it.
And the faster you do the more creative thing, the faster the next idea
the
faster the evolution happens.
Is created where you have to fill in the back. Okay, so now the Fiend's the champion. What would he do next? And oh my God, it's going to be against Brock. What are we going to do there? Like, absolutely, especially if we're talking about trying to inspire numbers on Fox. Monday Night Raw is still big. We want to reinvigorate the business. You put the title on him, you let him beat him, and then you're off to the races. And you're like, okay, now what would happen? What does happen where Bray Wyatt shows up in the Firefly Funhouse and he's tweeting to everybody, I'm sorry, I don't know, this guy is... The Fiend does these things. I'm sorry. I want to heal as well. We don't even know what the heel glove is going to do yet.
Right.
And you have all of this stuff. Put the title on it. Let him look dominant.
He hasn't had to use it yet.
So much. And now Braun, he literally confronted Braun, and he's saying, "Stay away. You don't want a part of the Fiend." And eventually, those two are going to have to square off. And it leaves for so much. Cena's going to come in and try, and he's going to get fucking decimated too. Like, it just. Do it. Pull the trigger now, because I would rather pull the trigger and figure out where we're going to go than 3 months, 6 months from now us sitting here and being like, well, they really missed the boat on that Fiend thing.
If they have him lose clean to someone with a sunset flip or a small package
a roll-up.
or something like that.
Music, the gong goes off and there's a roll-up.
Oh my
God. The issue with what you're saying, Eddie, though, is that we complain all the time about them pulling the trigger on something and not having any long-term planning on what they're going to do after that. That's mostly what this podcast is about.
So what I'm saying is
bitching and complaining.
But what I'm saying is, would you rather worry about that, or would you rather us 6 months from now say they missed the boat on the Fiend? The Fiend, this thing that we all
of course not. But
remember SummerSlam where we fucking talked to the whole show, and that happened, and all of us sat there stunned silence.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, right.
Like, just go.
But
for
we
it.
also were the people that the next few weeks was like, don't put him on TV that much. Let it build. But he's been on TV almost every week.
And we fucking loved it every time. The Firefly Funhouse is good. Which one would you have taken out? It's a fair question. Which one would you have taken out?
I agree. He's
I
good.
prefer the Firefly Funhouse than the Fiend attacking.
The fact that we all agree on it is one thing. The fact that kids find it amazing is another. The fact that the Fox executives are obsessed with it is another. That shows you... This is undeniable range.
Of course.
The only person that could fuck this up, of course, is Vince.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I say you got to be careful with it.
Well, let's give him a little surprise. Well, that's exactly why we should do it.
No, Vince, that would be it would ruin the character. Oh, you mean so no one's gonna see it coming? And like I can hear the talk.
Right.
It's gonna happen, and it's gonna be figured out minutes before a fucking match in which he was supposed to squash.
Because it's gonna be like the Fiend coming out with like a birthday hat.
Because I've heard backstage stuff too about the Asuka situation. And they were like, well, we should have probably just beat her earlier then. You know what I mean? If we weren't gonna do anything big with the streak, like. Because, I mean, that's not the only way to get a superstar over. You know what I'm saying? Shawn Michaels was undefeated. Bret Hart wasn't undefeated. The Undertaker wasn't even undefeated.
I fully understand. I also just am like, well, let's not... Because what we're doing right
early
now...
loss to Hulk Hogan.
What we're doing now, though, is asking... We're preventing the thing we all want. Like, we're all saying, let's be careful because of what they could screw up. So we're anticipating something. Yeah. So if you take that out of the equation, if you live in the moment of the idea of what's the best decision now, it's you go in and in 4 minutes he becomes the champion. And Seth Rollins is like, I didn't know what to do either. And no one knows what to do. If I loved that style that he wrestled against Finn. Everything was different. Like, just keep going with that.
I agree. 100%.
That's the way to go than to worry about, well, of course they could screw it up. Everything can be screwed up.
But in the same way, it's like, of course we want to capitalize on it. And of course we don't want them to regret later. It's just like, what's the right decision? You know what I mean? Because if it becomes contingent on his specialness being that he hasn't lost, that's another problem too. You know what I'm saying?
But it's not even about him lost. He only had one match.
Yeah, I'm saying.
But yes and no. The Undertaker made an entire career off of 22, 21, and whatever.
But that's only a WrestleMania.
Right, but that's
in his fourth singles match, he lost Hulk Hogan.
Absolutely. You know However, in this instance, if your question is what's the best writing, the best writing is in 4 minutes he walks out the champion and we're all stunned silent.
Everybody hits just like Finn Balor did. There's a little what appears to be a momentum shift, but he's no selling. And it should be, if it's done properly, which fingers crossed, everything has been done properly up to this point. Every little thing that I've sort of been obsessed with and predicted about this character has gone swimmingly. So here it is, knock on wood. Not only does he win, and it's not necessarily about his record. It's not that Goldberg-y. It's not that Asuka-esque. This should be about pure domination. Even Goldberg, we saw, really sell some things sometimes. I feel like maybe Rhino got a big one in on him for a second. You thought, and then he's off the camera. Oh my God, what's going on? Then boom, spear, jackhammer.
Sure. But I'm all about the domination, but
if just picture here for a second, if it continued for 2 or 3 years. I mean, like, basically what we hated about Brock, but now it's with this Dark Force. It's unbelievable. Like, if you think about it, it's sure. Yeah, you haven't had it. Maybe, I don't even know if he needs, of course, we know he doesn't need the championship belt, but even if he did have it, it just works because it makes you so that you have to watch. So not only technically do they have a new Undertaker and a new Goldberg, they really have a new Brock Lesnar because that's what Brock is.
And I think it's less about just the win or loss because I agree with all of this. The idea is if you go into Hell in a Cell and he doesn't win the championship, then it's a screw finish, and the screw finish is what I think is even worse than taking a straight loss. A loss is something that can come.
It depends on why. Look, say it is the Undertaker. You know what I mean? And the fucking bell tolls, lights go off, lights come back on, and the Fiend is gone, and there's no Undertaker either. You know what I'm saying? Like, they do some weird spooky dooky shit like they do with the Undertaker all the time.
Welcome to another episode of Spooky Dooky.
Yeah. And it's just Seth Rollins confused in the ring because now everything's gone. You know what I mean?
I think that's incredibly interesting. The idea of the bell goes out, the lights go out, and there's no one there, and Seth Rollins is just looking around.
Like, what the fuck just happened?
I think one, that kind of devalues the whole thing, but second is not more interesting to me than watching a 4-minute domination. Seth gets a couple moves in. It looks like he's going to do something. He dives outside. He catches him. And then all of a sudden the Fiend just overwhelms him again. That's more interesting to me.
You both said it already. We just witnessed a champion who's done that for years and years, and that was Lesnar. Yeah. We just saw that.
And you was talking about him.
And he's the biggest draw in the company,
no, he's
mind
not.
you. Who is?
It's Becky Lynch. She's the biggest draw in the company at the moment. Oh my God. She is.
I think I would debate that. I would highly debate that. And at the moment, I would go to the Charlotte Flair line of, okay, you're hot for 6 months. We're talking about Brock Lesnar is literally going to headline their Fox show to draw viewers.
But
Brock Lesnar is the biggest draw in the world right now. He's the guy.
In a way, I mean,
it's Brock Lesnar.
I put Charlotte Flair.
Look, I love Becky Lynch's run right now. I think it's incredible for the company and for her and for everyone else.
I agree that he's the biggest crossover star they have other than Cena, but it's like the fan. You can't.
He went to the UFC and really beat people. Like,
I agree, like he's all right, but you can't say that the fans haven't been vocally tired of him.
And that's partially his role. Absolutely.
But sort of. But it's like it hasn't improved. But it's like
But anytime he shows up, people tune in to watch.
But that's sometimes.
You can't tell.
What do you mean sometimes? Every time he shows up,
well,
it's a
every
big
time I tell
field.
you the numbers that proves that's not true, you tell me the numbers don't matter.
But
so it's like, what am I
but the
gonna
numbers
say right now?
on those clips, the news of Brock Lesnar being a thing makes news. It's not just
but it's like when the
and we're
Fiend
talking about
shows
trying
up,
to feature. Remember, Monday morning on ESPN, 11:30 on SportsCenter, Sunday night, October 6th. The Fiend holding up the championship belt over a dead Seth Rollins.
I hear you. I hear
is
all
the
of
draw.
that.
Yeah, that's good, but like we all loved the Fiend. We love Bray Wyatt, but the thought of Bray Wyatt and the Fiend being the champion for over a year sounds like the worst thing ever.
Oh my God, no! It sounds
I will
awesome.
argue that sounds like the worst thing ever.
Well, let me ask you that.
I don't I personally don't like champions to be like the Brock Lesnar, where they just hold the belt forever. People always have bad days, and it's better to sell like they had a bad day against that person and they lost the belt than to have someone just dominate. Like that's why I've always hated Goldberg.
Yeah,
I've always hated Goldberg because it was boring to watch him just crush people every fucking Monday.
Well,
it was so boring to watch.
It's the point I keep making. They have to figure out how they're going to defeat the law of diminishing returns before they go in this direction with the Fiend. If he's just going to destroy everybody, it's like, again,
But he doesn't have to destroy everyone. This is his debut. This will be his second match. So in this incarnation, so you have him win. That doesn't mean he holds the belt for a year or doesn't hold the belt for a year. You can have a bad day. We still don't know what he would do against somebody as big as Braun Strowman. We don't know what he would do against the Undertaker or Roman Reigns or Brock Lesnar or the Demon Finn Balor.
Right. The question mark is intriguing. The title doesn't need to be mixed up in that, is what I'm saying.
I agree.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a fair point. But they're in this
there's
spot
ways,
now.
There's ways to get out of this match with him completely destroying Seth and still not walking away with the title.
All I'm saying
he could just beat Seth down, and he doesn't even want the title.
I just think
you know
what
I mean?
The most interesting. So they're in this spot now. So to get out of it,
you're
either talking chicanery, some overly written thing to get out of it.
I don't even think that needs to happen. What if he just mandible claws him and he just won't let go? Because he does. It's not about the title.
They have established that if they pass out and the shoulders are down, they're going to count it. So they've already established.
But what if he won't let go and the referee reverses the decision? That's happened before.
What if it's a mandible claw against the ropes?
That's a weaker thing. I think that's a really weak way to write it.
On the ropes, on his ass. Against the ropes.
I'm not more interested in that. I'm not more interested
in
that.
No, what's end up going to happen is I feel like Mandible Claw will be in and somehow Braun Strowman comes in.
I think that's what's going to happen.
I'm not interested. I'm not as interested in that either. That's my only thought is that if you're saying that, I'm like, I get it. Yes, you can still write the character interestingly if he doesn't win that match. What I'm saying is right now the most interesting thing to me is to see what will happen if he comes out, he does that, and then on Monday night, he shows up and he is the champion. We have to be like, what the fuck is going to happen now that this demonic, crazy, dual personality thing that we don't even understand yet now has the title and looks not only unstoppable, but just dominant and overbearing, and his style is he grabs them by the back of the neck. He doesn't even lock up. He grabs them by the back of the neck.
I like it. I like it. I think it's a philosophical mentality.
Yeah.
I think Eddie and I lean more towards we want it to feel real. A real champion, a dominant champion that does hold on to the belt for a long time, and that does happen in other sports.
It does.
And that is the more realistic thing. Like, to me, I love Kofi. I love what they did, and sure, he's got great pops and this and that, but I mean, like, am I really buying it out of nowhere? No.
No, and I argued that last week. I felt like Kofi's been a mid-carder most of his career.
Yeah.
And we were supposed to just accept that now all of a sudden his finisher knocks you clean out cold, and now he's just this different level of superstar. And it's like, it didn't really work for me. I love Kofi, and I think that he's performing better than I would have ever given him a chance to.
Yeah.
But, it's like, okay, so, all I'm saying with this Fiend thing is it's like, if he's the champion, that means now we're going to have to see him more and more and more and more and more. And then it's like...
No, that's not necessarily true either going off the
And
Brock
that's what
thing.
I mean. Also, we just
both
did
ways.
that with Brock. And I don't like... We
But
can't do that with
the
two
thing with
champions
the
in a
thing
row.
we do have with the Fiend is we have those Firefly Funhouse segments, which allow us to see the character, have a story around it that I think, especially with the way Bray's been handling it,
Right. But Eddie,
he shows up and the title's sitting there and
remember
he's like,
how great we thought it was that there was no Firefly Funhouse after SummerSlam? We just were just like, wait, what's going to happen? Where's Bray? That was way more exciting than now we've had it every single week.
You could skip
then.
a week. You could absolutely.
But he's the champion.
So
you got to
could
see the
skip a
champion. We just went through this with Lesnar.
But I think that
Lesnar
one of the
wasn't
things
on
we've
every
always
episode.
That's
I think
what I'm
something
saying.
we've said is
so
that
you think he should be on every
there's an
episode, or he
overexposure.
shouldn't be?
The champion should be. Bray should not be.
I don't always agree with that. I think the champion.
Yeah.
Look, I work in wrestling as well, and
hear
there
you.
are people who absolutely prescribe to the idea that you don't put the champion on every week because it overexposes the champion.
I don't think he should wrestle every week.
And
But
I don't think
then
he
what better
needs
than
to
the
show up.
Firefly
I'm just
Funhouse?
going off of what we just went through. Lesnar had the title.
I know, but
we
you're
didn't
comparing
see
two
him,
different wrestlers.
But it's still psychologically it's the same thing. I don't see the Universal Champion.
And
But here's the thing:
I
I
don't
get
think
what
you
you
want
are
to see
saying.
the champion every week.
I do get what you're saying, and I understand that. But
Seems weird.
you and I see it different because I am a Lesnar mark. I'm a guy who thought that Lesnar's reign is incredibly interesting because I don't know when he's going to show up, and I don't know how it's going to work out. And he's so hard to beat. He feels real. He's
and that's
a spectacle.
the way that they want it, by the way. You know what I mean? It's not
Right.
like they couldn't give Brock an extra $20 million to show up every week.
In
if
fact, they
wanted
are
to.
now because they need him on Fridays.
Right,
And
right.
they're like,
Well, I mean,
as
he
long
will
as you
be
can
there
show
on
up once a
Fridays.
week, Brock,
Yeah.
we'll send the private
The whole
jet.
landscape's changing with this new
for sure.
Friday
But my
thing.
point, go ahead.
I'm sorry. My question is, who do you think are the two biggest feuds for the Fiend? Two guys that
that's
biggest
easy.
feuds.
That's Brock Lesnar and whoever at the time is the guy.
No,
Daniel Bryan, your Becky Lynch type of fucking who's hot today. Give him a shot.
This is what I disagree. I think the two biggest Fiend feuds is Demon Finn Balor and Aleister Black.
Oh my god.
Those would be the two biggest fucking Fiend feuds.
Go watch New Japan.
How long did you wait in line for your new shoes today, you hipster?
You don't need the title for those two matches.
I am so not interested in fucking the Fiend versus Aleister Black over the Brock Lesnar.
What are you talking
It's the
about?
Fiend and Brock. It's the Fiend and Braun. It's the Undertaker. I love the idea of the Demon, but like I'd much rather see how Roman Reigns is going to respond to the Fiend than Aleister Black.
The belt doesn't enhance the Fiend. The Fiend's already at the top.
Agree with.
You don't need the belt to enhance.
Daniel
the
Bryan
belt is
and
a
the
good
Fiend
enhancer.
is interesting.
Like, for example, the belt enhances Kofi.
Does it enhance Brock Lesnar?
Wait. Does the Fiend enhance the belt? Because that would be the test. The test is, does the guy create the belt? And right now, that's the hot thing. So he gets the belt. But it's not the other way around.
Well, not really. It's like usually when the guy doesn't need the belt, you don't give it to him because it doesn't add anything to the situation. What's great about Bray is like, what is his motivation? We don't know what he's really about, why he does the things he does. When he has to defend the title, that becomes a different thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, let him be more creative than that. Let him figure something else out.
But he has been telling Seth, I remember, we don't know what that is yet. So after he destroys him on Sunday, Monday night, he's going to be like, this is what I mean. This is what I told you.
And that's why I think it would be more interesting if he just destroys him and he has zero interest in the belt. He has an agenda that has nothing to do with the championship.
I mean, let the record show that I agree with both. I could see why he'd make a great champion. I could see why he totally doesn't, why he might not need it.
He doesn't need it.
I wouldn't
right
send
now.
him after the gold until he puts the Undertaker in the fucking ground. That's I wouldn't go towards a title till then.
And honestly, even though, as we all know, I'm mega fan of both of those guys, the Fiend and the Undertaker. Honestly, my gut instinct and my brain, because I've been kicking it around for a half hour, I'm not really interested in that match. And
I think
he could carry the Undertaker and it'd look amazing.
They had a good Mania match, just they had the
know.
wrong ending.
I know, and
this is how they fix it.
I think if the idea of the Fiend is only
quite
to
back in history, though,
and I think if you're just putting him there to beat if this character needs the aura of beating the old thing, I think this character is bigger than that.
But that's what the whole thing has been. Everybody on the wall is someone who did something wrong to Bray, and the Fiend never forgets. That's what the whole fucking thing has been.
Right, but I don't
Undertaker's the ultimate example of that.
To me, it isn't the pinnacle because that match wasn't done right and billed right. It's and the comparison is more to these supernatural characters than to the actual.
But
feud.
that's also been the meta part of the Fiend. Everything has been like wink, wink business stuff as well. And one of the biggest complaints from fans was like, no, Bray should have won that match. That should have been Bray's big WrestleMania win, which he hasn't been given yet. And so he can hint at that throughout all the fun houses, and then it finally fucking happens.
Yeah, I think we need to know more of the story of what the Fiend is, what he is as a person. All that needs to be told before the fucking title.
No.
I don't agree because it's still wrestling. It's still sports entertainment. At the end of the day, he is in the title match. He asked for the title match. He's in hell. He's like, I think all of those things line up. You can still make it pro wrestling and tell that story, and I think they're primed to get back to the absolute root of what it is.
I don't fully disagree with you guys, but
How long's Kofi been the champion for?
Since Mania, so 6 months.
I hear where you guys are coming from, but this sounds a lot. What's giving me most pause is this is sounding exactly like when everyone was trying to justify Charlotte beating Asuka, and she immediately became not special after that. So we'll wait and we'll see what happens. That's for goddamn sure.
Someone messaged in the Facebook. Apparently, the first episode of SmackDown is against Game 1 of baseball playoffs and Joker premiere, the movie Joker. So it's gonna be a tough
two things that
first Friday.
Only specific people are really interested in.
Yeah.
It's a big competition for that first Friday.
I'm skipping SmackDown to go see Joker, guys.
Me too, probably. But where can they find you in the meantime, Tony?
Dallas, Texas, Melbourne, Brisbane, and Sydney, Australia. New York City, D.C., and a lot of other fun places. Sacramento, San Francisco, doing my podcast, doing a lot of stand-up. It's a busy end of the year for me. TonyHinchcliffe.com. Kill Tony streams live every Monday on YouTube if you're a fan of stand-up comedy. And, some big announcements coming up right around the corner that you're not going to believe. And you loyal Store Horsemen listeners are going to be rewarded, and you're going to get to say that you were here first, that you were one of the original, that you were one of the first few hundred or couple thousand or few thousand Store Horsemen fans. You're going to be hipper than any of the AEW fans, than any of the WWE fans, because you're going to say, I was there first. You are about to be rewarded, Store Horsemen fans.
I'm going to say this. If you're not subscribed to us on iTunes, if you haven't left us a 5-star review, if you haven't followed us on social media, if you've done none of those things, you will not have first access to what we're talking about. So I'd get on that shit ASAP. If you feel what I'm saying.
This is not a plug. This is
not a plug.
Warning for your reputation and your life before your friends are telling you about us and you're like, I've been listening to them forever. And then you're in the dirt.
It's coming in hot as soon as this announcement makes air. Let me tell you. And it ain't historical roast, but tell us all about it, Eddie.
We have, October is the busiest month. October 5th is the very final pitch fest at the Ruby LA, where we actually launched historical roast. There's a couple tickets left. Message me if you want one of them. October 5th is pitch fest. October 12th and October 13th, historical roast and fictional roast are going to be at LA Comic Con at the Convention Center.
Yep.
So make sure you get your passes for that and check those out. We're roasting the Avengers and Thanos on Saturday, and then Ted Bundy on Sunday. The Golden Pony's going to be there with us. And then October 30th, we're roasting the 1920s back here at the Comedy Store. So get tickets for that as well.
Love it. Josh?
October 4th and 5th, I will be in Boise, Idaho with Pauly Shore. And then October 13th, here in the Bella Room at 10:30 is my next little long set show. Me, Brenton Billicombe, Jesus Trejo, each doing 30-minute sets.
Yes, sir. I'll be in Chicago hanging out all weekend for work. So if you can find me, holler at me. Then I'll be in New York the following weekend. I'll be hanging around New York Comic Con for a hot second. But I got stuff going on out there, too.
You're going to do an episode of Matt Black when you're out there?
Oh, yeah. It's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea at all. And we'll, like I said, get with it now. Follow us on social. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. You will be the first people to have access to this unbelievable thing that we've been teasing for the last few weeks. Make it happen. Never forget. Store Horsemen are your hookup. Holla if you hear us.